Hello, this is Analia, and I'm so glad that you're back with me today. If you've been following along for the last couple of weeks, you'll know that I have been talking about people pleasing. This is a 3-part series. Now, in part 1, I talked about the way I've been living the life of a people pleaser for years without fully realizing what I was doing or why. In part 2, I talked about the origin of when that started for me in childhood experiences and how I learned that love could be taken away if you weren't behaving in the way that was expected of you. Today, in part 3 of this series, I'm going to talk to you about what I've been learning through this process as I've talked to you, as I have prepared for these videos and the writing of them, and how I'm now learning to shift from a life built around keeping the peace by pleasing others, and then moving into one that's built on sharing the truth that lives inside of me, even when that is uncomfortable and difficult. I've been thinking a lot about this and realizing that it has shown up in my closest relationships, namely my marriages. Now, in 2 marriages, I have a combined experience of over 30 years in this, so it's definitely something that's been going on for a really long time. Recently, I've realized that I have been carrying a lot of anger toward both of my husbands. Anger in ways that they didn't see me or misunderstood me, or ways that I felt unheard and unseen in the relationship. Now, some of that anger is real and valid, but if I'm honest with you and true to myself, which this whole thing is about, right? I have to understand that some of that anger is me directing that toward myself. This is in ways that I stayed instead of leaving, in ways that I said yes when I really meant no, and even in things, in situations that I said yes to, and I knew I should not be doing that at all. I knew they were wrong. But taking ownership for where you went wrong in a thing, in a relationship, and it's hard to sit with, right? Because no one wants to think that they're the cause of anything that is wrong or damaging. But you have to sit in it. You have to look at it. Otherwise, moving forward is just not going to happen. And being able to look at it is definitely necessary. Being a people pleaser doesn't just affect how we're treated. It also affects what we tolerate, and I think can even become a form of passive aggressiveness or like a subtle manipulation to try and control an outcome. And that was something that I found myself doing a lot because I didn't want something that was going on to explode into some big argument, or I didn't want to just like end up in tears, or I didn't want someone saying something about me that wasn't true. And so I thought I had to try and manage that situation so that I could determine the outcome, and that an outcome that was going to be more favorable for me and wasn't going to be emotional. Now, in my first marriage, about 6 months into it, my husband said to me that he thought we should probably get divorced because he didn't think that he'd ever be able to please me sexually. So first off, let me just say I heard the word divorce and I just like crumbled inside. And second, it was super confusing because for the first couple of years before we got married, that was never an issue. So now here's this thing that he's telling me. And the first thing I did was to shut down any part of me that seemed like I was, I don't know, coming off as being too sexual or something like that with my husband. So when I look back on that, what stands out for me now is that in that time, in that moment, I did not push back. I didn't even question where that was coming from for him. I just mirrored him. I shut down any part of myself that I thought would run contrary to me wanting something different from him, because what I was really trying to do was, not just keep the peace. I was trying to keep love and keep him from leaving me. And so I was doing that by trying to please him, which was like, okay, I won't want you so much. I won't desire you sexually so much. I'll just shut that down so that you won't leave me. Now, in my second marriage, my husband would often tell me that I was the love of his life. And I realize that some of you listening to this might wish that, I wish my spouse would say that to me. Okay. And that's great. And that's beautiful if that's what, that you would desire from them, because it is a beautiful thing to be the love of somebody's life. And I never felt that for either of my husbands. And it wasn't because I thought there was somebody better, someone that, oh yeah, this person, this person is going to be the love of my life, not this person that I'm married to now. I never thought that. What came up for me whenever he said that was one of two things. The first, which was always like forefront, was that does not even land with me, because if it were true, you would never have treated me in the bad ways that you had, at such and such a time in our relationship that were really devastatingly hurtful to me. You would not have done that if I were the love of your life. The second thing that feels more now, something that I'm realizing now, was that I didn't even know how to receive that, right? Because I never felt worthy of that kind of love based on what had happened to me when I was little. And so in that other way of someone telling that to me, that's like, there's so much depth there, so much emotion that I felt was going to be required of me to maybe give that back, that I wasn't even capable of giving. So the kid store incident that I mentioned in part 2, I talked about how it didn't just shape my behavior, it also shaped how I felt, right? And how I would emote. So I learned that showing emotion might have some direct correlation to whether or not someone still wanted me, to stay, to be in their life, or whether or not they were even going to love me. And so because those two things felt super unsafe, I just shut those parts of myself down. If someone said to me like, hey, how was your day? Whether it was my mom or one of my husbands or something, it was just easier for me to say, kind of like a kid or a teenager, like, oh, it was fine. And then just go off and, not really talk about the things that I had experienced in the day, because maybe something in there might be something that they would pick up on, and then some argument would ensue. And this is just what I told myself. Sometimes that actually happened, but most of it was just what I told myself. So this was really complicated in my marriage, especially my second one, where my husband needed emotion from me in order to feel loved. And so I felt this particular pressure to emote for him so that he would never think that I didn't love him. Even if I didn't like him very much at the time of a particular situation, I felt that I always had to make him feel that I loved him without, I felt like I had to perform that way and show up that way, even if I wasn't feeling like it or didn't really know how to express it. So that worked for quite a long time until it didn't, until I got to a point where I felt I was just losing myself because I wasn't being truthful. So, and for most of my life in choosing peace, I didn't do it because I was weak or I didn't care, but because it felt the safest to do that. But here's the reality, is that kind of peace, it requires a kind of self-abandonment, and that is not peace at all. It's more like a sort of chaos, right? Because it's just now everything always just feels out of balance. And as daunting as it feels the first time, and this is something that I am really starting to learn now, is that telling the truth of what's really living inside of you, it doesn't automatically mean that your world is going to fall apart, even though it feels like it might in that beginning time, because you might be thinking that if I say this thing, then this is going to come down on me and everything's just going to break. it can actually be, in that truth telling, the beginning of real and true intimacy. And that's when you can start a shift in the relationship or a breaking of long lived dynamics that were never really working before. And in that, I'm beginning to understand and accept that love isn't something that I have to perform for or earn by being agreeable. Now, if you follow my blog, you're going to know that there are conversations with my husbands that I'll never be able to have again. And there's closure that I'll never be able to get from them. Now, fortunately, in order for healing and to move forward, unspoken conversations and unresolved closure don't have to stand in the way of what's happening right now. And that is me furthering along in my life toward being healed from being a people pleaser. So this is coming up in reflection when I sit down with a cup of coffee and just have some quiet time in the morning, or when I write, especially when I'm writing in my blog. It's a huge way for me to undo years of this. And then most importantly to me, in my relationship with God. Now, of course, I'm still learning what all of this looks like and still learning how to say no to some things instead of saying yes all the time, how to speak honestly, and how to feel what I've spent years trying not to feel, like, not shutting things down anymore because I'm afraid of how someone's going to react. And it's not always easy. 100%. It is not always easy, but it is the only path I know how to take to move forward. Now, if any of this in these last 3 videos, if any of this from those or today, if it hit you in, some deep way, I'd love for you to share it in the comment section below. And if you know anyone in your life, not just yourself, but maybe you know someone else who's struggling with people pleasing and they've shared with you that they're struggling with that, I would love for you to share this video with them or this series, because maybe there's something in it that will resonate with them and will help them along their healing journey. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.